Welcome back, everyone, all you fine people. Just Be Happy, Billy Joe, Queen Goddess, Skipper Key, Philo, Brian, 888, Rod, so many more. We'll be with you in just a moment. Hit share, hit like, and if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. I've got Jimmy Jeans with me, and we are going to get into some Rhesus negative woo.
How dare you! How dare you!
She's getting out of control, Jimmy. She is getting out of control. She really is, dude. That Greta, she is definitely overstepping her mark. It's the Wookiee. Only the Wookiee gets to kind of the first say on the Kev Baker show. Talking of Wookiees, how you doing, man?
I am doing phantasmo, Kev.
Oh, it's just phantasmo today.
Yeah, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage, but I am doing the best I can, Kev. And you know what? There's nothing better than a nice, big, healthy bowl of Kev Baker in the morning. And it goes good with every essential, nutritious breakfast.
There was a part of me, Jimmy, a big part of me thought there was going to be no Kev Baker show pre-stream today or pre-show stream. There was a part of me that thought there might be no main show at one point because just before we came on air, dang, everything that can go wrong does go wrong like 2 minutes before you're about to go live. And then add to that, me clicking buttons that I've never clicked before. Myself and Jimmy sounded like we were in the time warp again. And wow. Yeah, we're happy to be here. And folks, this is the first stream of 2 today, because I've got a very special show lined up for later on Truth Frequency Radio. I'm looking forward to this one. Tony Merkel, the host of the Confessionals podcast, he is going to be in the house, yes. And tell you what this guy doesn't know about woo, you could write on the back of a stamp next to what I don't know about woo. So when you get this almost, I don't know, Jimmy, a plethora, an abundance of woo that is I don't know, just up for discussion later. I'm lost for words. You know, I'm very much anticipating a good show.
Yeah, I mean, I am looking forward to getting to listen to that too, man. And just want to say, you know, maybe you guys will take some calls. I don't know, because the calls that came in yesterday,
top notch.
The calls that came in yesterday were literally unbelievable. So hopefully, you know, some of the friends and family over here will give a call if you guys open up the lines tonight, because that guy looks like he's going to be super interesting. You're probably going to have to do a part 2, I would say.
I would imagine show. I've gone full Sean Connery at 5 to 8 in the evening in the UK. It's going to be a good day, I can tell you. But no, another reason I think it's going to be a good show is because it's our good friend Charlie Robinson kind of put it together. He said, look, you guys, you don't know each other, but I think you two would get on really, really well. And I've dipped my toe into the Confessionals library today. And oh my word, it's like not a doppelganger, but it's almost like meeting another version of you. It's going to be great, Jimmy.
Well, you know, Charlie is one big-hearted, great guy. I've continued our friendship, you know, throughout, you know, the time that I'd been away here, and he's a beautiful guy, man. I love him, and you know, he has such a perfect let me tell you something. If he says you guys will fit together, he puts together people that fit together like hand in glove, and I'm sure you guys are going to get on perfectly.
Big
And
time, dude. Big time.
Hey,
It's like I'm almost like the Scottish version of Tony, or Tony's the American version of me. And I just wish, I pray I could grow a beard like this man possesses, but that's for later on. And, you know, we decided to do an earlier kind of, like we used to do the extra stream today, because the woo and the good topics have been really flowing this week. And last night, towards the end of the show, inspired by the listeners, of course, when we opened up the phones, we started to touch upon RH negative blood, Jimmy. Now, this is something that behind the scenes you have often brought up in conversation to me. Before I get to an article about this, I mean, talk to me about your... How did you become aware of anything to do with this? Talk to us about your RH negative story.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, growing up, I didn't really know anything about it, you know, and a lot of, you know, I've had, you know, ever since I was a young person, I've had, you know, certain, I don't even know how to call it, what it is, but, you know, my intuition is really good, highly functional empathically. So, you know, I can get a sense of things that are going on, not just by what someone's saying, but the tone of their voice, the inflection of it.
So you yourself you're a negative dude then, for anyone out there that doesn't know.
Yeah. I'm RH negative, so I have AB negative.
Okay.
So, and that's like 1% or whatever of the RH negatives are that. So there's a lot of traits that seem to, you know, there's a lot of common traits that seem to, you know, follow RH negatives around. And the thing about it is, you know, if you don't know what your blood type is and you're an RH negative and you have some of these traits that seem to be, you know, that present themselves empathically, is one of them, because it seems that a lot of people are empathic. And the reason that's important, just simply because if you don't know that you're an empath, but you go into a room and when someone's in a bad mood, it's just, it just makes you want to, almost like you want to throw up, you know? I mean, it's just like, you know, the energy, you know, you can feel it. And so,
because life's hard and you make it less hard. EXO.
Wow, Billy, thank you so much. I don't know why Brian didn't come on and read that. I'll need to get that fixed, but
what was that?
Wow, that was it's a STREAMLABS super chat.
Oh, cool.
Yes, just because we're on the naughty step doesn't mean that you can't have your messages read out on the show, folks.
Sweet.
There's a link down below, and Billy, I cannot thank you enough. Really can't. Wow, honestly. And this whole RH negative thing, I mean, I was looking at this today, right? And in recent times, we've been talking... Oh, hang on. All right, sorry, I think I'm meant to go outside right now and applaud all the workers in the hospitals and things. I think so. I can't go outside because I'm vulnerable. I'm locked down. So I'll just do it here, right? You get a news flash in the UK telling you when to clap now, Jimmy. So I better clap like a trained monkey. And it's monkeys that we're going to be talking about here, actually. Because this Rhesus factor in the blood, and I know it's probably like sucking on grapes, me telling you that there's 4 blood groups out there, right? O, A, B, AB. And there's this factor, this Rhesus factor. Now, 85% of the world are positive. They have got a positive Rhesus factor to their blood, okay? This is all to do with the antigens that are in there, and it gets really biological, but we don't need to go all that deep into it, that side, because
there's a bunch of people over in the chat that are saying they're negative. There's a bunch of listeners.
Right, that's cool. We'll get to that. Dude. But there's 85% that are positive. So that obviously, you don't have to have gone through Common Core maths. And if you have, I don't know what number you might end up at, but anyone else that knows decent maths will say, well, that means there's 15% that aren't positive. Well, this is where the RH negative kind of factor comes into it. And it's really, really strange. And when I was looking into this today, I found out that the Basque people, now the Basques, that's a region over just between the border of France and Spain. I think it's the Pyrenees Mountains. And they're already a bit of an enigma because their language that they speak, it's kind of hard to trace where it actually came from. And anthropologists and historians, they've been puzzled over the Basques forever, right? But
Right.
35% of Basque people, now that's a lot above the 15% we see in the average population, the world population. 35% of the Basque people have this RH negative factor.
It's
Now, you might
wild.
think to yourself, well, you know, if you're RH negative, RH positive, who cares? Look, it's really weird, right? Because if you've got an RH negative mother and she has a baby with somebody that's RH positive, well, there could be big problems on the horizon. To the point where they used to actually make you check your blood groups before you had a family and things like that so that this wouldn't arise. And what I'm talking about is anyone that's RH negative, if anything from the RH positive blood comes in, or in this case, a baby, well, your blood, these antigens, they recognize that as almost being alien. And they attack it and kill it. Now, Jimmy, here's the thing, right? We look at the given story of evolution and everything else, and out of Africa, and we came into Europe, and I know I laugh when I say out of Africa now because I know fine well that there's a bigger chance we went into Africa from Australia through Asia in there, right? And then you've got this the Europeans, they come along. And there's something really interesting about this RH negative thing, right? Because you don't find it in our common ancestors down in Africa, do you?
No, but what's interesting is that there's quite a large African American community that has RH negative blood. So it's not just a matter of it's only white people, you know, just to make that clear. For example.
Yeah, but when you trace it back, I get it now, but when you trace it back in the genetics, I mean, it just appeared.
It just appeared.
Yeah, it just appeared. And you have to wonder what change, what kind of freaky mutation takes place, right? Where all of a sudden it's recognizing the old, what you came from, has almost been alien to you. And this is where it gets really weird. And I've got a little article here. We're going to discuss it further on the other side, but it goes further than this. And Jimmy will be able to update us after this article because it's not like you just have this blood. It's like there's other stuff comes with it. I know. It sounds weird. It sounds out there, but that's how we roll on here. So let's take a dive into this article. It's not very big. All right. It would help if I had the actual article on screen. Hang on, Jimmy. Something went horribly wrong there. But I suppose the fact we're even on air after the start we had is pretty darn good, right?
Right. I was going to say Barack Obama was RH negative.
Was he?
And yeah, and pretty much every president of the United States, except for a couple of them, have been. It was an early one, and I'm not sure if Jimmy Carter was RH negative or not. But most of the royal families across the face of the earth are RH negative. Some of the evolutionary aspects of the RH negative blood types, when you trace their origins and see how they spread out, there was leaps in evolution, these stair step of evolutions with domesticated animals, different kinds of things that were literally humanity changing moments in time. It's been traced back to that. They say, based on the shroud of Turin, that that if that is an imprint of Jesus Christ, then he was Rh negative as well. So if that is the case, if Jesus was Rh negative, then you would see why these royal families and such would claim some sort of a direct lineage back to that and claim their right to rule or whatever. And I seriously, and this has been a discussion amongst, I know you want to get to this article, I'm just giving you a chance to get it up. But amongst Rh negatives in general, you know, there's a lot of discussion about, you know, different things that go on. You know, there is a community, and it was so interesting. I'm sorry that I blurted it out to you, but I was just blown away because a lot of the listeners, a lot of the people in the chat room right now, people that have names in the chat room that you'll recognize, a lot of those listeners are Rh negative, and it's interesting that they're drawn to this particular show. I find that really interesting, Kev.
No, I do as well. I do as well. And my mum, she's a negative.
Is she?
Yeah, she is. Me, I'm A positive. Pretty sure I remember writing that on my hat when I was in the army. You know, in case the inevitable happened, Jimmy. You know, and you needed some of the red stuff, you had to have it on you, what blood group you were. But if we get into this here, I see people in the chat room have been talking about, you know, they've wondered where they come from. And this is the thing, where does this blood come from? And you could look at it as it's some evolutionary mutation that takes place. Was it some evolutionary leap? And I say that because it brings with it additional traits. Or is it the result of a science that we're only catching up on today? Something like CRISPR-Cas9. And I know that sounds really, really weird, folks. I know it sounds weird, but then when you start to get into the stories about Enki and Enlil, and you find out about these super scientists that were down here running experiments, and not for the first time. No, not for the first time. And we often talk about the cattle mutilations and everything else. Well, hey, maybe we should just be grateful they've moved on to cattle now. Because at one point, there's a good case to be made that they were tinkering with us. So it says here, origins of the Rh negative factor, extraterrestrials, gods, or reptilians. So then, it says here, ufology, or in ufology, a theory that explains that human beings are the product of a genetic cross with extraterrestrial beings, a kind of experiment done by beings of very intelligent civilizations that resulted in the human being, and that belies the theory of evolution. But an experiment of this type should have left some genetic trace, and this was precisely what was found in people with the Rh negative blood type. Recent tests and studies that we will see below show that people with this blood type could be direct descendants of these extraterrestrial beings, turning them into human hybrids. So what is the Rh negative factor? Well, it's a protein found in the blood that is directly linked to the monkey Rhesus. And when the reaction to the study is negative, the result is that the person does not have traces of offspring of the monkey. Then whose? So the negative Rh is present in the blood of 15% of human beings. Among its genetic components have been traces of DNA from reptile animals, and a recent study in which they have been tested people who say that they had an experience abduction, trying to find a common denominator, has managed to determine that more than 90% of people who have suffered the trauma of abductions have this unusual blood type. Now, that there, 90% of people who have claimed to have had some type of contact and go further into the human abductee realms, 90% of them have this blood type. Now, I tell you what, that's a statistical anomaly if ever there was one. If only 15% of over 7 billion people have this blood type, how on earth can it be just random that 90% of those people claiming to be abducted? And I know some people don't buy into all of that, but remember, it only takes one. It only takes one to be right, and I think there's far more than one. But that definitely suggests to me, on the face of it, circumstantially, couldn't put it in court. It sounds like whoever's interested in abducting humans, Jimmy, they certainly have a inclination towards picking somebody with that blood type. Because, come on, if there's only like 15% of the planet kicking about with that, you can't tell me that it's just chance 90% of abductees have it.
No way. No way, man. No, and you know what? I mean, there's a lot of intersecting points with this, because if you look at the creation story from the Colburn Bible, and you look at the fact that what you were saying earlier about the reproductive qualities of Rh negatives. So if there's an Rh negatives and there's two of them together, they can't mate with the opposite, right? Is that what you said? That if it's a positive,
there's problems. Yeah, there's problems. Problems can arise if the baby ends up being Rh positive.
And it says that in the Colburn Bible, it specifically says that there's sort of an Adam character who's created here on Earth, and then
you find that in most of these books, right? You find that in most religions, origin stories. Always this man, this woman. Usually they end up called Adam. Hey, just saying. You reckon they're talking about the same dude?
Could be.
Damn. And yet we fight wars over these books. I just don't get it, Jimmy.
So the powers that be created a female person for this other person that was here, but they were specifically instructed not to mingle with the people that were here already. You know, they called them the brown people. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
We talked about this with Bruce Fenton and Mammoth from the chat room, Jess. How
Nice.
Even maybe animals were used to represent the different tribes and ways that you could go hokey pokey and fool around. And other people, other places they come from, no worky. Those two codes, they don't go together. So this ties in with what we've been talking about very recently on the show.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you some information about this after we get a little bit. You want to go ahead and finish?
Yeah, no problems. It's not long at all, because this is where I'm going to come back to you anyway.
Well, I mean, there's talk. I'll say something here on the air that you probably haven't heard, and this is talked about in the Rh negative community. Amongst each other, amongst people, and it's that the original sin for the Rh negative bloodline was that we were put here to help humanity move forward, and there's a certain something about the Rh negative that has a knowledge, that it brings to the planet from wherever it came from, and the thing about it is that the people that are ruling the planet, they're using their abilities in a negative way to manipulate and to control, and that is why they try to keep Rh negative people from getting together and creating a group of people that could possibly oppose that control, because humanity is supposed to move forward in a good way, in a good positive way, and that's why the RH negative bloodline was put on the planet in the first place to help and show and teach. Instead, the powers that be and these
Look at Jimmy.
bloodlines.
Look at Jimmy. He's the leader of the RH insurgent faction.
Well,
Rise
it's
up, my
interesting.
fellow RH people. Rise up.
Well, the thing is, it's interesting because there's a really, just like you were talking about with the alien situation. There's also an overwhelming amount of targeted individuals that are RH negative, and it's pretty well thought that anybody who has RH negative blood is tracked. That's what people think. So I don't know, man, but all I know is you got a giant group of RH negs right here, so that's why you have
let's get back into this, because it says special characteristics of people with RH negative factor. So people with the negative RH factor are special and have easily detectable characteristics that we're going to describe next. Pending, because if you have any of them, you could be a human with extraterrestrial blood running through your veins. Have sensitive vision. Now that would suggest to me that you maybe have a genetic code, an underwriting of something that comes from, I don't know, somewhere else that isn't used to the amount of light that's let in here. Maybe you come from some other species that, I don't know, they had different eyes from us. I don't know, just thinking aloud. Lower body temperatures, sensitive to heat and sunlight. Again, all characteristics of something that probably isn't native to here. And when I say that, folks, that is in no way meant to be or is intended to be detrimental or offensive to anyone of the RH negative. We're just exploring this here. In fact, if anything, you're more special than the rest of us. So there you go. So it says they have a high psychic energy. Very interesting, because again, in my weird world of woo that only exists in my head, the aliens we're talking about, I would say they're telepathic. We usually hear that they communicate through telepathy. So it wouldn't surprise me if a distant relation or offshoot of them, a hybrid of them, had similar abilities. An ability to stop the needles of the clock and manipulate electrical appliances without touching them. Now see, we're getting into some Harry Houdini stuff here, man.
See,
this is X-Man stuff.
It says stopping the clock, and I was just saying yesterday, there was a time we were talking about time, and I was telling you, I mean, there's been times when it seemed like time slowed down, and I made it when there was no way I was going to make it. I mean, it's a trip. That's what I mean. A lot of people don't know they're RH negative, and they're running around unconsciously, working with that in the world. People don't realize. Go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
No. It's right. I'll go in the chat room. He's saying that, where is it? Not more special, but we know in our guts we aren't from here. And it's a challenge often. Listen, there's a way of thinking about it that I haven't had before. What does it feel like to be an RH negative when you think about all this stuff? And I've never thought of that feeling of not belonging, or almost some subconscious encoded kind of yearning, longing to go home. And you don't even know where home is, Jimmy. That's deep, man. That's really deep. And I've seen Rick, our good friend in the chat room, he's talking about 33 known types of blood groups. 33. Interesting number. And interestingly enough, you find sometimes that people with this blood group, they have an extra vertebrae in the spine. And yesterday we were talking about the 33 vertebrae of the spine, Jimmy. So it says that the investigation presumes that we were a race of slaves created to serve these extraterrestrial beings because 97% of our DNA is deactivated and only 3% is known. as necessary as the necessary to be or to be able to live. Now, Jimmy, I want you to share with the audience what happened when you got together with a bunch of people at Contact in the Desert.
Yeah, it was trippy. I mean, this is really where I noticed it, where I noticed something, you know? I mean, up until this point, I really didn't know. I mean, I didn't really think about it on a daily basis or do any research on it or anything. I really wasn't interested in it. But when I was doing there, I was working with Brad Olson, and I was working his book table while he was doing his, his lectures or whatever. And so, people were coming up buying books and stuff, and I was chatting people up and this and that. And I started to notice this overwhelming amount of people with green and blue eyes that were coming up to the table. And so I started asking, when somebody was come up to the table, I started asking them if they were RH negative. And like I would say, like this one girl, I said, are you RH negative? She goes, oh my God, I just got goosebumps when you said that to me. And so I started asking a bunch of people, and people, I honestly, I'm not even making this up. 9 out of the 10 people that I came in contact with at that table were RH negative because I asked them. So I started to think about that gathering at Contact in the Desert, because there's such a diverse group of people, lecturers and whatever. So, but there's this crowd of people that were somehow drawn to that event. And there was this mingling of this giant group of RH negatives there. I mean, and I came in contact with as a matter of fact, I was sitting outside with another RH negative. We were having a cigarette. She was from England. She was a listener to the show. She knew who I was because I was on your show. And we were sitting outside having a smoke. And her and I were talking, and she was a psychic, right? And we were talking, having a conversation, and I was talking about this and that and the other thing. And it was like I went back inside, and everything that we just talked about happened to me when I walked in the door. It was almost like, we had gotten together and created this scenario to take place. So, I mean, overall, I would never in my life have gone to Contact in the Desert, as something to do per se. It wouldn't be my choice. But I ended up having one of the best.
It doesn't seem like your kind of place at all. No.
Yeah, no. But honestly, I had one of the best times in my entire life, dude. And let me tell you something. I'm just gonna reiterate this. When I was there were so many people at that thing that knew the Kev Baker show, and they knew who I was. They came up to me and asked me if I was, on the show and stuff. So there's a lot of, matter of fact, I met a really great couple there that had some crop circle stuff. And Anissa, I think, you remember her? Alyssa or something. Anyways.
Yeah. She's still on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I met a lot of great people, and it was one of the best times I ever had in my life. And I was cruising my Segway around, so I had a chance to talk. I was talking to all kinds of people just because people were chatting me up about the Segway, and so that gave me an opportunity to also keep asking about RH negative. So
I'm going to shove on some music in the background, but last time I done this, right, I forgot my own rules to my own vote. So this time, I want you in the chat room. If you are RH negative, type yes. And if you're not, type no. Yes, if you are in this unique 15% club, or no, you're one of us. You're one of us Terra natives down here. We're from this damn rock. I don't know, Jimmy, this is quite an interesting topic we've picked on today.
Yeah, I'm having fun. This is a good time.
Spooky Andy. Now that I knew. Now that's a good dude, is our Spooky Andy. Bella.
Yeah.
Look at this. Wow. King Sweet was saying, wow, whoa. Holy shimoly. Now, Adam, if you drive, it should be on your driving license. But I don't know where you're from. I think over here we've got it on ours.
I knew it. See, that's why I wanted him to call in yesterday, just because I knew there was going to be a bunch of them, dude. That is unreal. Wow.
That's-
Hi, everybody.
Wow. Wow. That is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Exactly, Phil. It's all red. Wow. Is somebody saying, Greg says, how many have tested themselves with an Eldon card? Not sure what that
Well,
is.
I made sure that I brought up the thing about the African or the black people.
Hey, Billy, I'm the same as you. We're good to go. That's it. If
Hey,
we
the
ever
reason-
end up in the zombie apocalypse, we are good to transfuse. Yes, indeed.
The reason I brought up the black people thing is because a lot of people, what happens when you start talking about RH negative is they start saying you're white supremacists and all this, and it's just not true. But that's what they say to keep people from talking about it openly. You know, there's a lot of, let me tell you something, man. There's a lot of groups out there that, you know, on Facebook and stuff. If you're RH negative, just go over there. You can find others, and you can find out what. You know, I mean, I did a poll, and I asked people, you know, if they had above average IQ, if what personality types they were, you know, were they INFJ, you know, this and that, and you know, the majority of people said they had these same kind of qualities, or I don't even know if qualities, abilities, whatever you want to call it, they seem to be overwhelmingly.
Superpowers, dude. Superpowers, right? So we're gonna have a bit of this article. It says evidence that humans contain extraterrestrial blood. Now remember, we're not telling you this is the case. We're giving you the information. I'm reading it secondhand. They've probably got it from somebody else. And in the end of the day, we provide, we let you decide. So have you ever felt different from others? Often. As if you did not fit in to this society? Every day. First, check your blood type. Well, it wasn't that for me, but I know now that many of the people here got here because of this. This is really weird. This is really cool weird, though. Because if you're an RH negative, then this may be the cause of your rarity. In the north of France and the south of Spain, it is the place where there is the highest concentration of people with the RH negative factor in the world. Now, 45% of Europeans have the RH negative or the negative RH factor. Of Afro descendant people, only 3%. And only 1% is between Americans and Asians. This gives the idea that it was for what we know today as Europe, where about 40,000 years ago, that blood type was introduced into our human race. But who did it? Well, let's continue. Stephen Alton, author of the Mayan Testament book, in his chapter on the origin of humanity, explains that the introduction of RH negative was not introduced naturally into our blood, product of the, or as a product of the evolutionary process, but was artificially entered by an external source to any organism known on the planet. Ah, David Icke, our good friend, had him on the show. Still can't believe it. Author of the book, Don't Mention the Reptiles, clearly says in his interviews that people with the RH negative factor are human hybrids descended from a race that mixed reptile DNA and human DNA. So it goes on to talk about the Basque people. We mentioned them earlier on. 40% of them, it says here. And then it goes on to quote somebody who I refuse to quote on the show. According to the ufologists explain, people with this factor could be being genetically manipulated to increase the percentage of humans with this blood type and thus fulfill a dark purpose of these superior races to be exterminating the original human race from the planet to implant definitively a race with extraterrestrial blood with which they could coexist. Now, that's a bit out there. And I don't think Jimmy and the rest of the RH negative people listening to the show today, I don't think you've got some sneaky agenda up your sleeves to get rid of all the rest of us people. I don't know where that came from. That wasn't.
No.
This isn't me and Jimmy saying this, folks. This is from an article, right? If you have this blood type or this type of blood, then it's not surprising that you can be visited by these beings and that DNA runs in your veins from some corner very far from space. That doesn't even make sense. A corner far from space. So it's not. So they didn't come from space then, Jimmy. You see what I'm saying? This must be translated from another language. We don't need that. We just need me, you, in the chat room. So, what are you making of it, dude? What you are we think like? It makes a good point there though about how it was obviously something, or in my mind, from the evidence we have, it does seem like something in the European kind of thing took place. And then you do wonder about these old European bloodlines, as they call them, and things like that. And there's nothing old about them, because most of them are still in power today, Jimmy. It's it does make you wonder.
Well, it's getting really busy around here, so I'm sorry if there's some background noise. There's nothing I can do about that.
It's all good.
So I'm sorry. I'm trying to stay muted. But listen, yeah. So there's nothing. I mean, maybe the ruling elite have some agenda that they're, but they're all getting together in these rooms and, putting their brains together, But the thing is what's interesting too is that we're drawn to each other and we don't know it. For example, until we did this and asked everybody, we didn't know that we're all Rh negative, right? But it turns out that there's a bunch of us, and that's how it seems like, we form groups unknowing to each other.
Yeah, that's a strange thing, right? We talk about quantum entanglements, and I've noticed it, well, since I started listening to my gut, I've noticed the people that come into my life when, there's some that stick around, and the synchronicities, I don't know, dude, but I had no idea, no idea that the percentage of people in the chat today would be as high as it is. And again, that's anomalous, because it should be that these people are very few and far between. Okay, more so here in Europe, I get that, but we've got a global audience. And, all right, only 215 people. It's hardly like a global study, I get that. But still, very, very, very interesting data, just up for a snap poll,
If you look at the percentage of Rh negatives to the population, right, and then you look at the overwhelming amount of Rh negatives that are here, it kind of lines up with the same kind of percentages that you saw with the abductions and the targeted individuals. For some reason, we're all here, man. It's fantastic. I mean, I'm overwhelmed by the whole thing. I think it's one of the best shows I've ever been on. I appreciate you having me here, man. Thank you.
No, it's good. Mart in the chat room. Big shout out to you, Mart. Reptilians are from the fallen, and I would definitely say one race of them are, but I think there's so many different types of everything out there. There'll be things that look like us out on other planets. There'll be different types of reptilians, and like any race, with intelligence, if we're anything to go by, you're going to have the full spectrum, right? You're going to have really, really nasty ones, all the way to really, really good ones. And I just think there's probably a whole lot more going on out there, Jimmy. I mean, our story that we don't even know 2% of, right? In cosmic terms, this could be just one scientific experiment amongst millions. Just one seeding, one experiment that some race took part in way back in the day, 40,000 years ago. And these experiments are ongoing. They're happening on various different planets of various different ages. I think in reality, I know it sounds a bit sci-fi, but I really do think if we were to know the full picture of what's going on in this universe, let alone the multiverse, it would be like Star Trek. I really do think that, Jimmy. Not like maybe there is federations out there in other corners of this vast infinite space, you know? Who honestly knows, dude? There could be so far away from us, and because of the expansion of the universe, their light would never even get to us. You know what I'm saying? By the time their light traveled to us, they could be gone. It's crazy, Jimmy. It's crazy. But point being, I think there's so many things out there, and a part of me does feel that there was something went on, whether it was Enki and Enlil, or the Chittahuri, or the Anunnaki, or the fallen ones. You name it, whatever way you want to look at it, Jimmy. I think it went on, but I also think we've done it in the past as well. You look at all those Sumerian type of statues, you know, you've got the half man and everything else. What the hell's that all about? Do you know what I'm saying? And then you go to Atlantis, and what kind of jiggery pokery were we doing there? Probably the same jiggery pokery we're up to right now, you know?
Well, that's what's interesting. Who knows? Who's to say what the percentage of RH negatives were in Atlantis, and maybe those were just left over, and maybe that's what Thoth was.
Dude, I was just going to say to you, maybe we've got seed vaults nowadays, right? And we've got gene vaults as well, you know? We store genetic data. And who's to say that if these Atlanteans, if they were as advanced as we are today, they'd have been storing DNA. So something happens, and maybe some remnant survives, and there's some vial of DNA somewhere, and it gets passed from here to there, it gets lost for a couple of thousand years, whatever, right? But then eventually somebody comes along and goes, by the way, we've still got this sample here of our ancestors. And to us, I mean, it looks alien, right? Because, well, you know, we're not taking into account all these other cycles and all the other versions of humans that have been around. It's an interesting story, Jimmy.
Supposedly RH negatives can't be cloned, and there's a lot of talk about Morgellons and the fibers that come out, that a lot of those people are RH negative from a certain generation, and that they're expelling that stuff out of their body, just like you were talking about earlier with the pregnancies. Now, I'm just telling you guys some of the things that are out there. I don't know if it's true or if it's not true. I can't prove any of what I'm saying. And being an RH...
Just in the chat says, clones don't have belly buttons. That's it, folks. Go and check your partner for a belly button. And count their fingers and try and count their spine as well.
Organic robotoids don't have belly.
I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, so no, I mean, these weird, you know, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and the Colburn Bible and the RH negative bloodlines, I think, all come together. But what also is interesting is the tall whites. The tall whites, there's a movie, I don't know if you've ever seen it, Kev. It's called Clan of the Cave Bear.
I don't need to. I watched the tall white. His name's Rudolph.
Yeah, that guy is I loved the tall white Rudolph. But there's a movie called Clan of the Cave Bear starring Daryl Hannah, and it's basically a movie about cavemen and a civilization. And she shows up. They find her, and she's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Amazon woman. And it's sort of representative of the RH negative bloodline, that it just appeared. She appeared, and they took her in as one of their own, as part of the tribe. And so what starts to happen is, as she grows up, she starts to develop all these skills that none of the other people in the tribe had, including the head male figure in the tribe who was the breadwinner or the killer that went out and hauled the meat back to the cave or whatever. But Daryl Hannah, blonde hair, blue eyes, super tall white, she develops this sling where she puts a rock and she puts a sling together, and she's, you know, now she's just as good as a hunter as the head male figure in the tribe, and it causes a bunch of problems.
It sounds a bit woke for me.
No, I'm just. I mean, this is a super old movie.
I'm
But I
joking,
highly
dude.
recommend
I'm
it.
joking, man. I'm
Yeah,
joking.
I mean,
But
if you're sitting around and you got nothing to do, I highly recommend this movie because it's a.
Geraldine says the book is better. The book's always better, I
Yeah,
find.
of
Yeah,
course. Yeah, of
definitely.
course.
And
Yeah.
you think about this as well, folks, right? I mean, I laugh at the term junk DNA. It's like dark energy. You know, it's junk. It's dark. We don't understand it. Just pap it away. We'll just put it under that title. And I wonder what messages lies within the junk DNA. And that's one of the things I'm kind of excited about quantum computing. Not about opening portals or anything like that, but that raw processing power. And the fact that it can look for patterns in that DNA, something that would be a gargantuan task even for our best supercomputers, you know? But I wonder what secrets might be unlocked in there when it comes to the RH negative factor. And more on from that, I wonder how many more cuts and inserts we will find in our genetic past. What I mean by that is, how many times have we been like the rings on a tree, you know? Everything could be recorded in that junk DNA. And if it is like that, then maybe we'll be able to see just how many times there has been an intervention, how many times there has been a little tweak here and there. I don't think this has happened once. I really don't. And I don't think it'll be the last time it happens either. Because everything's cyclical, right? Absolutely everything. And if there is a portion of humanity that was the product of some scientific experiment back in the day, in my mind, that definitely adds weight to why we may still have a presence around our planet that are, oh, I don't know, still taking part in what you would call hybridization programs. Many witnesses and victims of these hybrid programs, you know, there's definitely something going on, and I don't think it was in our ancient past only. I think it's ongoing, Jimmy. I think it may have been done many, many times, and then it begs the question: then, by who and for what reason? You know, what is the end game? We often talk about terraforming versus geoengineering, and we've gone way beyond geoengineering down here. So, are we literally getting the planet ready for something that's been a long time carrying out a plan to take over this place? I mean, that's a long plan, Jimmy, right? A long, long plan. 40,000 years ago, we'll sow the seed, literally sow the genetic seed that one day will blossom into a new race. And then I have to wonder, where do the black-eyed kids fit into all of this? I wonder if they're a different blood factor again. Another factor of woo that we can add into the human story, or should I say it, the ever-increasing hybrid story of our history, Jimmy.
The evolution of the organic robotoid is what we're looking at, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild, Kev. But you know, coming up in just what?
Just over an hour, I have got this gentleman right here joining me. Tony Merkel will be on the show, and he is the host of the Confessionals. He is somebody that has always, you know, wondered about the woo, the paranormal, the supernatural, and his big first thing that he got into was the Bigfoot. And that's as much as I'm going to tell you, because I want him to tell you all about it when we come back in just over an hour on tfrlive.com, and here on YouTube we'll be simulcasting, and I'll have that character there in the house, and we are going to turn up the woo. I tell you, Jimmy, this has been a very, very enjoyable starter, an entree, if you will, for Tony Merkel's first appearance on the show. Looking forward to it, man.
I know, it's exciting. You know, I can't wait to. I'm gonna be kicking back. I'm planting a garden today, so I'll have my phone and I'll be listening. So I can't wait. And man, this has been a fantastic show. And I want to say, you know, for this last period of time since we've been on the air, I haven't thought about anything else except for what we've been talking about here. And it's really just pulled me in and draw my attention away from everything outside. And I haven't thought about that other thing one time, Kev.
No,
Not
exactly. What other thing? Who knows? But yeah, we'll be back later on, an hour from now. Tony Merkel, Kev Baker Show, TFRLive.com, iHeartRadio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn Radio, and right here on our YouTube channel. But before I go, let me thank everyone out there. You know, since we've had the problem on the channel, you know, you lot out there have really stepped up to the mark, and I didn't ask for a thing. Because right now, and the show is almost like a microcosm of the macrocosm, right? Every day is a new day. The world is changing all the time right now. Some for the better, some for the worse. And in the weeks to come, me and Jimmy will sit down and we'll talk about some of the good things that are on the horizon. There is some exciting stuff out there. It's not all doom and gloom. You certainly won't be getting doom and gloom on this channel anymore. You know, a new start, new branding, new thumbnails for the main show today. And it's like a spring clean, Jimmy. And you turn the negative round and you use it to try and make something positive out of a really crappy situation. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for all the people out there. And again, I didn't ask for anything. And yet, the support that I have had from all of you, well, if I was to go on about it, I'd get a tear in my eye. And I ain't going to do that right here live on the stream. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. An extra special thank you to everyone who's helped support the show. Billy, you almost made me cry on the stream. You can't be doing that to me. And me and Billy are really good friends off air as well. We try and keep each other sane when all these stories are flying our way. Billy brings them to me. I try and take the rough edges off them. But things are getting hectic. And all I can say, folks, is buckle in. Because as we go through this time of change, there'll be ups and there'll be downs. But I'll tell you something that will remain the same. KBS Live. Right here. Every day. New content. And Jimmy riding shotgun most of the time. Look at him there. Loving it. Snake Plissken. Love it, man.
I went full Snake Plissken at the grocery store and came back with a bunch of meat. I brought the meat back to the cave, Kev. So I am supplied up for the next, I don't know, for the next 30 days. I'm going to be right here. And so anytime you want to hang, just let me know, brother. I got nothing but time on my calendar for you and your audience because I love being here and everybody's great. So thanks a million, everybody. We really appreciate anything. We appreciate you being here and sharing it out to people.
Over 200 people, dude. Wow. I had to make it bigger there. I thought I was seeing things. That's so phenomenal. Well, I invite all of you, if you've got the time an hour from now, to come and join us for the Tony Merkel interview, which is going to be really, really good. So until then, folks, I'm going to give you a bit of Greta. I'm going to give you a bit of our outro. And remember about that black goo, right?
How dare you?
Keep, you know what they say about the black goo, Jimmy? Keep looking for the woo, but not to the point where your brain turns to black goo. I'll be back later, and remember, you lot absolutely rock. Whether you're RH negative, RH positive, we're all in this place right now for the right reason. Don't know what it is yet. It's gonna be fun finding out, right? I'll be back soon.